Hi everyone, welcome to the tutorial for this week. Today we're going to be doing a Photoshop tutorial and you're going to follow along with me and then do the Photoshop assignment after you do the tutorial. If you already know Photoshop, that's great. If not, this will be an introduction and we're going to go through some of the basic tools that we're going to be using later on in the course when we need to make digital assets and we start working with the SnapLens Studio. So I'm going to stop my video now and go through the Photoshop exercise. Okay, so we are going to do a Photoshop tutorial and create a collage image with 5 images and use 2 to 3 quotes from Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto. And I've selected a couple of quotes that I'm going to use in my collage image. There's so many great quotes to select from that text. So dig through it, find something that you like and have it ready on the side. And then open up Photoshop and go to File, Open, and open the image from the assets that I provided, titled Belle Magazine. And this is an image that I got from the web archive that I'm going to use as the foundation of my collage image. And really this is for giving you an introduction and an exercise with some of the tools. So you can find something similar. I like using things like these old magazine covers and old ads. There's a lot of great kind of old technology and these things that I like to work with, but you can pick anything that you want. So this is the canvas here. And if I hit Command plus, I'm on a Mac, so my shortcut's Command plus. If you're on a PC, I think it's Control plus. So when I say Command for the Mac, if you're on a PC, replace that with Control. So Command plus will zoom in and Command minus will zoom out. And I do this a lot while I'm working. So if you see me kind of zoom in and zoom out, I'm hitting Command plus and Command minus. And over here on the left-hand side is our toolbar. Over here is our layers panel, our channels and paths. We're going to be working with our layers panel mostly, adjustments and libraries, and then we have different kinds of colors, swatches, patterns, gradients. So you should have an interface that looks like this, and then go up to File and Save As. You might ask me where I want to save it. I'm going to save it on my computer, and I'm going to save this as my last name and my first name, and then week 1, which is what you will save yours as, but with your name. And click Save and OK. And over here, there's a little lock on the layer. What we want to do is double click and hit OK so that we float the layer and then rename it background. And I'm going to replace the text from this telephone magazine image and use the Donna Haraway quotes here instead of this. So what I'm going to do is erase it, but I want to erase it and keep this kind of texture. These old magazines have this sort of nice texture to it. And if I just get rid of the text, I'll lose that texture. So what I'm going to do is use the healing brush tool, which looks like a little Band-Aid on the side here. So if I left click and hold down, you can see that there's a few different tools behind here. If you have a different tool here, and your toolbar might not be set up exactly the same, and you might have to find the tool. So if you right click and hold, you'll be able to find other tools. When there's a little arrow on the corner here, it means there's other tools behind there. So if I hold on it, there's other tools here. And I want the Band-Aid that is just by itself, not the Band-Aid with the little patch there. So that's the healing brush tool. And then if you hold down Option and click somewhere where there is open space here, and then click over here, you can start to erase the image that is there and replace it with the pixels from over here. And you can see this little plus sign below. And that little plus sign is where it is getting the pixels from. So I actually want to go down lower to get this out of here. I'll just start. I kind of do this selection a lot. I want my little plus sign to stay over there. So I'm just hitting Option and clicking, left clicking on this area, and then I'm using the brush to erase those kind of pixels, using the pixels as my brush instead. So I just erase what was there. Oops, I got too close down there. And that's pretty good. I'm just doing this really quickly. So I've just erased this image of what was there, or the text that was there, and I'm using the pixels that are part of the image to get rid of it so that it still has that same kind of texture, and there's, you know, slightly different variance in the color there. So I like that. I'd probably get rid of some of this. I could do this for a lot longer, but I'm just gonna, oops, move on to, so that looks pretty good. And then down here on this text, I also want to erase that, and I want to use the healing brush. So I'm going to use this here and just come along the edge here. I should probably make my oh, let's see, where is this? Make my diffusion a little less up here. So again, hitting Option, and then I'm just going over, and I'm not being super careful on the edge there. That's okay. To erase the text that was there. And that looks pretty good. It looks like the texture that's there. And then I'm going to put in my quote. So this is a good empty space. So whatever image you end up using for your assignment, you want to have something that will give you some space for your text. So now if we go over to the text tool and make a text box, it's going to give us some lorem ipsum, and I'm going to write in our best technologies are made of sunshine. Let me make sure that's the quote. Our best machines are made of sunshine. not technology. So let me change that. And up here, I have the type of font, so I can select different fonts, and there's a preview. We'll go with that. And then I can change the size here. And I'm going to make it a lot bigger. And to move this zoom. And then if I go here, I can change the color of the text. So there's this little color picker. I can move around in here and pick a color from this color picker, or I can use this little eyedropper and I can select a color from here. So if I want it to match, I could select this and it will give me this sort of range. Or here, I'm going to go with this green color. And if I click on the layer here, when I have the text tool, it will let me select within this box so that I could highlight the text and then change it to a different size. If I click out of the text tool and then I have, if I go to this is the move tool, and I can move this, but if I then try to resize this box, it will resize my text, which is not what I want to do. So I'm going to Command Z and go back to my text tool and then click on the layer here. You can double click on this box where the T is, and then it will give me, I could resize the box and it won't resize the text. So if you're in a different tool and you click on the text box, it might give you that resizing of the whole thing. So I don't want that. Let's see, I think I want 30. And then over here on the right-hand side, there's some more things that we can do to format our text. So this is justify. I'm just going to justify my text. I could align it to the left or the right or center it. I'm not going to go too much into the text tool because we're not going to do a lot with text. So I'm just showing you how this works. Okay. I think I will. Lost a word. Okay. I kind of want it to sort of align in a weird way. So that's my text for the top. And then I'm going to do another quote down here. And I want this to say, oh, what was my quote? They're all light and clean because they are nothing but signals. Going to copy from my document. And then paste it in here and resize this to something smaller. And go to my text box. I'm not going to justify it. I'll make it a 12 point. And then I'm going to move it over here. Okay, so I would probably play around with this a little bit more. Again, if I double click inside of the square where the T is, I can highlight the text inside of it. In order to change it, I could do this, or if I am with the move tool over here, I could do this. This will change my font size. And if I don't want to change my font size, then I have to double click in that square inside of where the T is. So there is my font, or my second quote. Trying to make it look like the original ad. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to start to do some manipulation. So a big thing to know for this class when we're working on our projects is going to be how to cut out different things for making your digital assets. So we're going to do some of the different ways to cut things out. And I'm going to start with the magnetic lasso. So if you go over here, there's a tool called magnetic lasso, and it looks like a magnet. If I click right or left click and hold down, you might have the lasso tool there or the polygonal. Make sure you have magnetic lasso. And what I'm going to do is cut out this person's face, and I want to keep their hair there, but I want to just cut out their face. So what I'm going to do is click on the edge of these pixels. And up here, I want no feather. So I'm going to put a 0 up there. This should be fine for the rest of the settings. And when I click, there's a little box and the circle pops up. And if I drag my line here along these pixels, it will start to understand the contrast of the pixels that you're trying to cut out. But you can also click to make these little boxes. Oh, you know what? I'm going to start this over because I'm on the wrong layer. So if you go back to this little box in the beginning, these dotted lines show up. And so this is good because you might mess up. So I messed up and I need to get rid of that. And what this did was it made a selection. So I'm going to go to select and then deselect to get rid of that. Or I can use the shortcut, which is Command D, which I use frequently. So I was on the text layer. What we want to be is on the layer, the image layer, that background layer. So make sure you're on the right layer. Whatever layer you're on is what it's going to ultimately be applied to. So make sure background is checked, and then let's go back and start over again. Make a click here. And now it should do a better job of understanding this line of contrast. So if I need to add a point, I can click, or I can just drag it along. So I'm not clicking anymore, and it's just, I've just clicked. It's just going along the contrast of the pixels at the edge that I'm dragging on, and kind of intelligently creating this line that I want it to create. And then I go back to the original mark that I made and I click, and then I should get a selection of these dotted lines. And that will let me cut out the face now. So I'm going to Command X to cut the face, and then I'm going to Command paste it. So now I have another layer here, which is just the face. And I'll zoom out. And I can move this around. This is the move tool. So if you go and you grab this, you can move this around anywhere. And I'm going to move the face down here. And then hit return. I'll actually make it a little bit bigger and hit return. So if you drag on the corner of something that you cut out, it will resize it and keep the image dimensions. And if I hold Shift and do it, it will let me do it without keeping the image dimension. So then you hit enter after you apply the transformation. So I'm going to resize it a little bit. And if I go up to edit and transform, I can do different things. So I can skew this and move it on an edge. I can do, and then you have to hit enter. I can do distort. Oops, I can do distort. And it will let me drag this out in all kinds of ways. I hit return, or I can do warp, and it will let me warp the image and drag out these pixels. And these transformations are going to be really useful when we're working in SnapLens. What I want to do is I'm dragging this out because I want it to look like this person's face kind of was removed and smudged out into space. So I like that. I'm going to hit return and it will apply the transformation. And now I can scale down the whole thing, or I can hold Shift and hit enter, and I'll zoom out. So I've kind of made it look like this person's face is, you know, being stretched off into the air. And then I'm going to add a layer. And go to the color fill, the bucket, which you might have the gradient tool or something else, but it's the paint bucket tool. And I will go select a color. I'm going to use this green. Oops. This needs to be on the top here. So if you click on this arrow here, the green was behind. I need to flip it around so that the green is on the top. And then I click on here and it fills that whole layer here. But I just want it to be in the face that I cut out. So I'm going to drag this down to the back. And now it will be underneath all the other layers. So it's only coming through in the space that I cut out. And the idea I'm kind of thinking about what this means. Our best machines are made of sunshine. And I'm sort of thinking about this sort of light, this green screen light that is, if this person is being projected through a machine, there's this kind of, I don't know, it's just sort of an abstract concept that I am thinking of while I'm working with these quotes. You don't have to be thinking too much about the quotes. It's just an exercise for working with the tools. But here, our layers, the order that we put our layers, so now the face is above the green layer, the background is below. But this is the order in which they appear. So if I move this to the background, you're not going to see it anymore because the background image is in front of it. So this is the order in which the images appear, and you can just click and drag to move them around. These don't really matter because our text is not in the same area. So it's a good idea to label your layers so that if you can't find something, you can see what it is and move it around later when you need to edit things. So these little eyeballs on the side will hide the image. It doesn't erase them, it just makes it so. If you're not sure, if you're like, I don't know if I like that, let me see it without it, you can use these little eyeballs to preview and take away the image. Okay, so I've got a good base going for my design. Now I'm going to add and cut out a few more things. So go to File and Open. Let's open the antenna. Antenna 2, and click Open. And then we want to double click and hit OK so that the background isn't locked. And for this one, I'm going to use the Magic Wand tool. So if you click on the Magic Wand and the default, I'm not sure what the default tolerance is. Make sure, put the tolerance to something like 32. And then when you come over here and you click on the white pixels, it's going to select everything in this contiguous space that have the same color value of pixels. So I've selected all these white pixels, and now I can hit delete. And now I will hit Command D to deselect. And I could go into these little triangles here, select the white pixels, and then just hit delete, 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 and then Command D. And now I have this satellite signal image without the background. And I like to, when I move things to my images, I grab the tab and I pull it out, and then I get the move tool and then drag from one into another. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to say OK. So now it is here. I could also, instead of dragging that out, I could take this, put it over this tab, wait for this to show up, and then bring my mouse in here and then let go of my mouse and then hit OK. So when I drag it, I'm not letting go until, so I'm pulling this up, my mouse button is pressed, I'm waiting for this to change, and then I let go when I'm over here. So that's another way to bring it in. Another thing you can do is just hit Command X. Oh. Now you have to have the layer selected. It won't let me. Oh, you have to hit Enter. I don't know why the cut won't work. Well, it won't let me cut and paste for some reason, but normally you can cut and paste. Okay, so I've dropped this in here. And if you don't have these boxes automatically on the edge to resize it, you can go up to the transform tool and then hit show transform control. So this will make it show up automatically. I'm just going to resize it and put this on this file cabinet. And when I got this image, I found my background image first. And then I looked for some images that I thought I could easily put in here. So I saw that there was a straight line on the top of the file cabinet. And then I found this antenna image that had a straight line because I knew it'd be easy to sort of place this in here. So the images that you select can really aid your Photoshop work if you get them in the right perspective. So I've just dropped that in there. And I'm going to rename it Antenna 2, I think it was called. And now I'm going to do another cutout. So go to File, Open, and get the Antenna 1 image and open it. And now I'm done with this. I can not save it. I'll close it out. Double click on the background. And I'm going to zoom in on this. And for this one, I will also use the Magic Wand tool. Or actually, let's use the another. So the Magic Wand is what I would use because it'd be really fast. I just select those white pixels, deselect, and then there's this white border. So if I try to use this image, it's going to bring that border. And I don't want that border. So what I would do is take the rectangle marquee, and within that border, I would just select inside of that. So I don't have the border on my image. And then I will go to select inverse so that it selects the opposite. So from this line that I just drew to the edge, because I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to hit delete and now deselect. So that's how I got rid of the pixels on the edge there. If I go to my history, this is the history tool. I can go back through all of those actions that I just did and undo them. So I could go all the way back to here and start over again. So the history tool is another way to undo. I could also redo really easily by going all the way back there. But I'm going to go back to this step. And instead of using the Magic Wand tool, I'm going to go to Select and Color Range. So this is another way to cut things out, and it will select a color range of the whole image rather than the contiguous, which is what the Magic Wand does. It selects, the Magic Wand will select only pixels that are touching each other. The color picker will select all of the colors in an image that you where you put this little eyedropper. So I could select this. Now it's going to select the colors that are in this range. Or if I go to the white, it's going to select that. And I can see the fuzziness here. And I'm going to put this about there and hit OK. And now it's going to select all of those white pixels. So now if I deselect, you can see this line is still there around the edge. And I can get rid of that the same way that I just did. Take the marquee, the rectangle marquee, select within, go to select and inverse and then delete so I don't have that border. Or I could use, I'll deselect that and go up. I could use the eraser tool. So here's the eraser tool. I could do this. Because it's such a clean line and an easy break, I wouldn't spend the time using the eraser tool to do this because I think the marquee method is just faster, but whatever you feel comfortable with or is faster for you. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat. So I'm gonna do that, deselect, and then grab the move tool, drag this out, and then drag this, click, hold, and then release when I'm on the image here. So now I have this other antenna, which I'm going to put on this person's head. And I might resize this like this and put it there. Or I could also flip it. So if I want to flip it, I would go to Edit, Transform, and I can flip it on the horizontal. So that gives me the mirror image. Oops. With the move tool, so I'm trying to grab this antenna and I accidentally grabbed that image. The move tool is going to grab whatever pixels you grab. So I have this really small little antenna. It can be hard to, I have to grab the pixels with my mouse in order to move it. So I'm going to put this here, coming out of this person's head. And I chose those images because the quote that I chose was "they're all light and clean because they are nothing but signals." So I was kind of thinking thematically when I was selecting my pictures. It helps me to select images that I have an idea of what it's about. So that's another way to cut out. We've used the color picker, the magic wand, and the magnetic lasso. Using those three tools, you can do a lot, and also the marquee. Behind the marquee, there's also ellipse. There's different kinds of marquees, and those are just selection tools. So now if you go to File, Open, and open the Zuckerberg image. It's an image I found online. Okay. I am going to cut out Zuckerberg's face and replace this face on the screen with Zuckerberg's face. So I'm going to use the magnetic lasso tool. So follow along with me to get some practice with this. And I would probably spend a little bit more time on this than I'm going to right now for the tutorial, depending on how good it works. So yeah, there's like a little thing here. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going a little bit fast. I'd spend a little bit more time if I were doing this for a project, but I'm going pretty quickly, showing you how it works, cutting out the face, and I want just his face. So I can move that out, the move tool, and take the selection and drop it in here. Okay, his face is way too big. So I'm going to resize that and put it down here. If I move my mouse out to the side, there's this little arrow, which lets me rotate it. So when you get that bendy arrow, that's the rotation. So I'm rotating Zuckerberg's face to fit in there a little bit better. And I'm going to make it over here. I can change the opacity and make it a little transparent so I can see. that fits about the right size. And I'll hit enter. So that is now applied. And it's layer 3. I haven't labeled it. I'm going to label this Zuckerberg, so I know. And then layer 2 is antenna 1. I'm going to take Zuckerberg away for a second and go select my background image, which is the main image of my background, and go back and cut out the hair so that I can put it over Zuckerberg's hairline. And this is going to come in handy when we're working with the snap lens, because we need to be able to cut things out and cut things out quickly. So make sure you get really kind of used to using these Photoshop tools for cutting things out. And we close it off here. So that's the selection. And now I'm going to Command X. There it goes. Lets me do it. And Command V for paste. So Command X, Command V, like Victor. And it's going to put the hair on a different layer. So if I go to my move layer, or move tool, it lets me move the hair around kind of autonomously. I'm just going to fit it back to where it was. And I can resize it a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. And I'm using the arrow keys to kind of move this around. Okay, I'll just leave that. And I'm going to call that hair over here. And I will bring this up above Zuckerberg so that I can use my arrow keys and move the hair to fit around the hairline. Because I want that. Okay, there we go. So I wanted the hair to have that kind of hairline that looks on top of the face instead of just cutting the face out. And I have these sort of lines here, which is green lines. I would probably work to fix that out, but there, I don't mind that. That's kind of neat. So now I have a Zuckerberg face behind the hair, and the order is, right, if I put the hair over here, then the Zuckerberg face is on top. So I'm putting the hair on top. And over here, I have the opacity. I kind of like the opacity lighter. I can also change the layer style. So I could dissolve, darken, multiply. These all do different things with the pixels of the image and the pixels of the image behind. So I kind of like this mix of a couple of different things. If I do overlay, it lays it on top. There's a lot of different things that the layer styles do. I can do a difference of the color, exclusion, subtract, divide, just apply the hue, just apply the saturation, the color, or luminosity. I'm going to do something like that, because I think that looks neat and sort of weird. So that was the multiply layer style. And you can do that with any of the layer styles. Just has a faint hint of Zuckerberg's face in there, which is a commentary that I'm trying to make very subtly. Okay, so there is a face with hair on top and different layer styles. This we've stretched out using the distort and cut out these two things. And I'm going to add in some robotic embellishments to this guy. So if I go to File, Open, and open the robot image, click Open, double click here to float the image. And for this, I will use the magic wand. So I just want to use some of the elements of this robot head, which is in profile, and apply it to this person's face here. And I selected this robot image specifically because it was in profile and this person is in profile, which just makes it a lot easier for me. So I will actually, yeah, let's take this. Oh, actually, let's do not the magic wand, but the magnetic lasso. Because I just want to get I don't want the whole head and neck. I just want the head. So I'm going to just messy do this over here because that's not really going to show up. I'm clicking and then getting the face profile so that I can select some of these gadgets. And it's hard to see. There's my beginning point. And now I will just move this. It's selected, grab the move tool and drop my robot profile over here. I'm going to name this, double click, name it robot. And resize it down. And then I'm going to turn it, put this closer to this person's face. And I'm going to change the opacity so I can kind of see through this. Okay, so I can see the face behind. Let's do 45 opacity. And I'm going to zoom in now so you can see. So I can see there's some embellishments here. And I'll take my magnetic lasso again, and then with the robot layer selected, make sure you're on the robot layer. I'm just going to cut out some of these sort of gadgety looking things to be a part of this person's face. And then I'm going to select the inverse. And delete it, and then deselect. And I'll bring this up a little bit. So it just kind of looks a little bit like the Terminator. It's got some machine parts showing through as if it's a cyborg, or, you know, cyborg in the very traditional sense. Like the skin got ripped off or something, and we can see that he's a robot underneath. And maybe I want to, let's see, change the color of that. I could leave it like that, but if I wanted to add a color to it, I can go to Layer and New Layer. Okay, and let's see if I wanted to add like a green. So I just want to add the green to this selection, not to the whole layer. So what I'm going to do is go to my robot layer, select it, hold Command, and click inside of this little box here. And it will just select that selection, not that whole layer, so that when I go to this layer, which is an empty layer that I'm going to fill with the color, and I go to the paint bucket, and now I fill it. Oops, Control Z, undo. I want the green. Now I fill it. It will just fill that selection with the color instead of the whole layer. So now I can deselect, and I can bring this opacity down. Or I could just apply the color. I can make those green parts all green. Or I can do a lot of these different things. I could change the layer style until I find something that I like. Maybe I'll do darken. I'm just kind of showing you, and I'll bring the opacity down on that color layer because I just want to add a tinge of green to it. So there's this sort of green tinge on everything. So if I put the opacity all the way up, it'd be like really green. I think that's too green. So I'm just bringing the opacity down, but adding a bit of a tinge of a green to it. Okay, so that is, let's see, I used one, just background image, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I used 5 images to create this collage, use some different Photoshop tools for cutting out, for distorting, layer styles, and the text tool for adding in some quotes. This is what you're going to do. You're going to make your own assignment, your own exercise after you complete the tutorial, pick out your own images, pick out your own quotes, and then upload your version when you're done. You can work through this using mine in order to practice, and then design your own. And when you go to turn it in, so first you'll have this saved as your last name, your first name, and your Photoshop document. You want to save it as a Photoshop project so that you can go back to it later, which you already should do. But then when you go to turn it in, go to File, Export, and export as a JPEG. So you want to make sure the JPEG option is selected here, and make sure that your canvas size is in pixels and not inches, because that will be really huge. I'm going to keep that how it is and then hit export and then save. It's going to my desktop. So now what you should have, and I'll get rid of these and click not save, is JPEG image that you will turn in, and you'll upload this to Canvas when you're done with your design. Okay, that is the tutorial of the week for Photoshop. Let me know if you have any questions. Don't worry if you have to pause during the video. It might take you some time. I don't expect you to follow along in real time with this. You'll have to pause the video and go back and forth. So hopefully it won't take you too long, and good luck, and I'll see you next week. Bye.